Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's August 27th, 2023, and we are in the Old Testament, book of 1 Samuel. We're going to read chapter 14 today. All right, so Saul and his army is camped near Gibeah, I believe, and there's Philistines are camped right next to them. No battle has taken place yet. Saul is waiting for something. I don't know what he's waiting for. But his son Jonathan decides to call his armor bearer, and they're going to go out and scout out the Philistines, see what's going on. And they come through a little pass to a little clearing, and there's about 20 Philistines, and Jonathan tells his armor bearer, hey, if they yell at us and tell us to stay here, then we know God's not with us. If they call us into the camp, God's with us. We're going to go in, and we're going to wipe them out. And that's what happens. Philistines go crazy. They don't know what's happening. They pick out their swords, and they just start fighting with each other. They're so confused. Saul in his camp hears the commotion, and he calls for the ark. In my Bible, he might say ephod. The Hebrew's kind of iffy on that. Doesn't matter, because after Saul calls for somebody to inquire of God what he should do, he tells them not to do it anyway, because he's going to go do whatever he wants to do. And that's kind of the story of Saul. He kind of almost looks like he's going to do what's right in God's eyes, but it's more about Saul's will than God's will with him. He makes a rash vow that anyone who eats during this battle until my enemies are brought before me, so again pushing God out of the way, will be put to death. And it turns out that his son Jonathan didn't hear it. They come across some honey, he eats it, and he's refreshed and he's ready to keep fighting. The rest of the army comes across the food, and oh man, we're so hungry, but we're gonna keep fighting, because that's what Saul wanted. And it comes back in a bunch of different ways to bite Saul in the behind, because it turns out that now Jonathan is the one who broke his vow, so he's got to put Jonathan to death to satisfy this rash vow that he made. His people are so famished by the time they're done that they just eat meat, bloody meat. They don't care about nothing, so he brings the people to shame. So we're seeing how Saul's disobedience is affecting lots of other things. After they resolve that, this section ends with a really interesting one-line sentence, which is that Saul is grabbing people and putting them in his army. Grabbing people, which is exactly what Samuel said was going to happen. You want a king like everybody else? Well, when he wants you for his service, he's going to take you. Doesn't matter what you want. So let's go ahead and we're going to read 1 Samuel chapter 14. Now it happened one day that Jonathan the son of Saul said to the young man who bore his armor, come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison that is on the other side. But he did not tell his father. And Saul was sitting in the outskirts of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree which is in Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men. Ahijah the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, was wearing an ephod. But the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. Between the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of one was Bozez, and the name of the other Seneh. The front of one faced northward opposite Michmash, and the other southward opposite Gibeah. Then Jonathan said to the young man who bore his armor, come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. So his armor bearer said to him, do all that is in your heart. Go then, here I am with you according to your heart. Then Jonathan said, very well, let us cross over to these men, and we shall show ourselves to them. If they say thus to us, wait until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and not go up to them. But if they say thus, come up to us, then we will go up, for the Lord has delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign to us. So both of them showed themselves to the garrison of the Philistines, and the Philistines said, look, the Hebrews are coming out of the holes they have been hidden in. Then the men of the garrison called to Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, come up to us, and we will show you something. Jonathan said to his armor bearer, come up after me, for the Lord has delivered them into the hand of Israel. And Jonathan climbed up on his hands and knees with his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan. And as he came after him, his armor bearer killed them. That first slaughter with Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men within about half an acre of land. There was a trembling in the camp and the field and among all the people. The garrison and the raiders also trembled, and the earth quaked, so that it was a very great trembling. Now the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and there was the multitude melting away, and they went here and there. Then Saul said to the people who were with him, now call the roll and see who is gone from us. And when they had called the roll, surprisingly, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said to Ahijah, bring the ark of God here, for at that time the ark of God was with the children of Israel. Now it happened while Saul talked to the priest that the noise which was in the camp of the Philistines continued to increase. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all the people who were with him assembled, and they went to the battle, and indeed every man's sword was against his neighbor, and there was very great confusion. Moreover, the Hebrews who were with the Philistines before that time, who went up with them from the camp from the surrounding country, they also joined the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, all the men of Israel who had hidden in the mountains of Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle shifted to Beth-aven. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had placed the people under an oath, saying, "Cursed is the man who eats any food until evening, before I have taken vengeance on my enemies." So none of the people tasted food. Now all the people of the land came to a forest, and there was honey on the ground. And when the people had come into the woods, there was the honey dripping, but no one put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. But Jonathan had not heard his father charge the people with the oath. Therefore he stretched out the end of the rod that was in his hand, and dipped it in a honeycomb, and put his hand to his mouth, and his countenance brightened. Then one of the people said, "Your father strictly charged the people with an oath, saying, 'Cursed is the man who eats food this day.' And the people were faint. But Jonathan said, 'My father has troubled the land. Look now how my countenance brightened, because I tasted a little of this honey. How much better if the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of the enemies which they found. For now would there not have been much a great slaughter, for now would there not have been a much greater slaughter among the Philistines?' Now they had driven back the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, so the people were very faint. The people rushed on the spoil, and took sheep, oxen, and calves, and slaughtered them on the ground, and the people ate them with the blood. Then they told Saul, saying, 'Look, the people are sinning against the Lord by eating with the blood.' So he said, 'You have dealt treacherously. Roll a large stone to me this day.' Then Saul said, 'Disperse yourselves among the people, and say to them, Bring me here every man's ox and every man's sheep. Slaughter them here and eat, and do not sin against the Lord by eating with the blood.' So every one of the people brought his ox with him that might, and slaughtered it there. And then Saul built an altar to the Lord. This was the first altar that he built to the Lord. Now Saul said, 'Let us go down after the Philistines by night, and plunder them until the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them.' And they said, 'Do whatever seems good to you.' Then the priest said, 'Let us draw near to God here.' So Saul asked counsel of God, 'Shall I go down after the Philistines? Will you deliver them into the hand of Israel?' But he did not answer him that day. And Saul said, 'Come over here, all you chiefs of the people, and know and see what this sin was today. For as the Lord lives, who saves Israel through, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die.' But not a man among all the people answered him. Then he said to Israel, 'You be on one side, and my son Jonathan and I will be on the other side.' And the people said to Saul, 'Do what seems good to you.' Therefore Saul said to the Lord God of Israel, 'Give a perfect lot.' So Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, 'Cast lots between my son Jonathan and me.' So Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, 'Tell me what you have done.' And Jonathan told him and said, 'I only tasted a little honey with the end of the rod that was in my hand, so now I must die.' Saul answered, 'God do so and more also, for you shall surely die, Jonathan.' But the people said to Saul, 'Shall Jonathan die, who has accomplished this great deliverance in Israel? Certainly not. As the Lord lives, not one hair of his head shall fall to the ground, for he has worked with God this day.' So the people rescued Jonathan, and he did not die. Then Saul returned from pursuing the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. So Saul established his sovereignty over Israel, and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against the people of Ammon, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, and against the Philistines. Wherever he turned, he harassed them. And he gathered an army and attacked the Amalekites, and delivered Israel from the hands of those who plundered them. The sons of Saul were Jonathan, Jeshua, and Malchishua, and the names of the two daughters were these: the name of the firstborn, Merab, and the name of the younger, Michal. The name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, and the daughter of Ahimaaz, and the name of the commander of his army was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. Now there was fierce war with the Philistines all the days of Saul, and when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him for himself. May God bless the reading of his word, and may God bless you. Bye.